Hello, and before we start today's video, I just want to reach out to a specific kind of user, a particular user that may have helped their friends and family with their IT solutions. Maybe you're the son of an extended family and all of you rely on just you to do all the IT tech. Have you ever had to install a network driver on a friend's or family's PC when you can't access the internet? It is one of the most infuriating things. You've gone round to theirs, they think you're the IT whiz, and you rock up round their house and you install a USB adapter or a PCIe adapter or some kind of adapter. One way or another, you're upgrading their internet connection there on their new build, but of course you can't access the driver to install the update. You can't install the driver because the thing that you're installing is the thing that connects to the internet. And you sit there on the floor, surrounded by PC components, wanting to rip your own hair out while they keep coming up to you going, do you want another cup of tea, love? Do you want another cup of tea, love? And this is you. If this is you who I'm talking to that's been in this exact same situation, you are my target demographic. Because to be perfectly honest, there are very few things in this world than trying to explain to a non-tech-savvy person that you can't get the drivers for their internet driver because you can't connect to the internet, so you can connect the driver to the internet so you can install the driver to get to the internet so you can get to the internet. That's right, with this incredibly petulant introduction aside, let's talk about this. This is something I've been waiting a long time for. There aren't a lot of kind of upheavals in the network industry that you hear about that much. Obviously there's been Wi-Fi 6 of course, but this is a real game changer. This is the D-Link DWA-X1850. That is a rubbish model name. I'm not really going to say it much in this video. I might call it the 1850, but this is the XO-AX USB to Wi-Fi 6 adapter. Now, why is this a big deal? Well, Wi-Fi 6 was this big upheaval for a number of people away from traditional Wi-Fi performance. Indeed, there have been lots of different variants of what we think of as traditional Wi-Fi with A and C and N and AC and all these different combinations. And there were lots of different little variants where people were trying to get the most out of traditional Wi-Fi performance with as little upheaval on the end of client hardware devices such as laptops and phones and stuff like that. And with all of that, most of the market industry was sort of looking at it going, meh, that's not a bad idea, meh, that's all right, I'm not sure about that. But eventually everyone came round and agreed that the next big upheaval in Wi-Fi connectivity was Wi-Fi 6, 802.11ax. This is the much higher performance, larger bandwidth and more secure and more intelligent data packet handling wireless connection. Now, this kind of became mainstream about 2 years ago with a lot of more prosumer and high-end devices starting to arrive on the scene with Wi-Fi 6 connectivity. Now, Wi-Fi 6 is by no means commonplace yet. It's still out there. I think it probably takes about 30 to 40% of new release industries. I think a lot more mobile devices are arriving on the scene. The latest iPhones, the latest Google phone, in fact, and the latest Samsung, that sort of thing. These have all arrived with Wi-Fi 6 on board. Laptops, it's slightly less common than you might like to see. And in desktop computers, it's virtually unheard of. The next generation of PlayStation has Wi-Fi 6 inside, although no one's really using it that much. The reason is that most people don't think of the internet and network as two separate things. They think they're all the same thing. They've gone around someone's house and they connect to the internet. They connect to the network which connects to the wider internet. And if your internet connection isn't absolutely vast, people don't really think of any benefits in terms of these wireless adapters. To put it into perspective, most of the internet connections, say here in the UK, there aren't many providers out there that provide gigabit connectivity. That is 100 megabytes download. Very, very few do. They provide 100 meg or 50 meg, but these are megabit, not megabyte, which is really, really important. Consequently, you have this flow of internet coming into your devices, and people aren't going to wonder or think there's any point in upgrading the wireless capabilities of their devices or putting any serious money into it until they know they're going to see the benefits. And that's because they only think in terms of internet, not network. Now, network is all the devices in your home environment, all able to communicate and all connected via the network to the same internet connection. Okay, so that's very important when going into this and understanding why this is a big deal about this. Now, on top of that, it's worth highlighting, although I mentioned the UK, in the rest of the world, sadly, you guys have got a lot faster internet in some places. There's places in Germany, in America, in Japan, and in large areas of the East where some of those internet connections are extreme. And with those, both in upload and download, devices like this are a great deal more beneficial, at least as far as users that only think about the internet. Now, this device here isn't just about high performance on that network and consequently connection to the internet. It's also about having a wireless connection with the router in your home or business environment that, based on proximity, you get better performance. So you want to know that if you are 5 meters from an internet connection, 10 meters from the internet connection in that router and therefore the network, you want to know that you are getting the best possible performance at this proximity. Okay? And that is why this is important, because till now, people have had to rely, if they want to move into Wi-Fi 6, to predominantly use upgrades that are, for the most part, PCIe based. They are either PCIe cards that have to go into a desktop system, or they are utilising PCIe over other connections as a crossover in order to attach devices like this in a PCIe shell and then connect it to their system. There's also alternatives where you can put tiny little M2 adapters like the Killer AX that we talked about in a video I ran about a year ago now to upgrade your laptop system. But this is by no means easy, requires a lot of taking the system apart, and will need a lot of updated drivers, going back to my earlier intro point there about trying to get internet drivers for your network adapter when you can't access the network or the internet. But now, and it's been almost a year since it was first revealed by D-Link, we have our hands on a USB to Wi-Fi 6 adapter. First unveiled at CES 2021, right there back in January of this year. This device was revealed and it was a real game changer, world first, and even now there's only one other brand since then that have worked on a solution in Asus, and their solution a little bit more expensive there, and it's a lot more complex, and we will be featuring it on the channel, I hope, very, very soon and doing a direct comparison with this. But this device here, arriving at a lower price point than most, arriving, at least in terms of Wi-Fi 6 devices, and arriving with a great throughput potential, and of course, simply being plug and play over USB, is an incredibly game-changing device, which will now open the door to Wi-Fi 6 for a tremendously large number of users who till now liked the idea of Wi-Fi 6 but didn't really like the price barrier that it came with. And now with internet service providers such as Virgin in their new Hub 5, an inclusive free ISP router with your internet service provider contract, which is both 2.5 GBE and Wi-Fi 6, now is a great time to jump on the Wi-Fi 6 bandwagon. And this is going to make it easier. But that's enough about why this is a big deal. Let's actually look at it and see if it actually is a big deal. So first up, let's take a good look at that retail packaging. It's an incredibly small box, as one might expect. It's only a USB dongle in there. Now, again, lots of information there on the outside about what it's capable of and the hardware inside, and we'll talk a little bit about frequencies and range and stuff like that later on in the video. But again, fairly nice. It will, will sit quite pretty on your local IT hardware store there. If we open this bad boy up, let's have a look what we get inside. And again, completely empty in there. We've got it all. We have first time setup instructions there. So again, paper manual, fairly straightforward. Again, all included there, lots of how to set it up for the first time. I should mention compatibility wise, there's only really talk from what I can see on their own website and the retail packaging with references to Windows only, so Windows 10, and of course Windows 11. But I would add that that doesn't necessarily mean it's not supported on any other platforms. And after this video, I will be doing bench testing on NAS systems. I'll be doing bench testing on a Mac system. I'll also be utilizing this, which is a USB-C adapter here, where I'm going to be connecting it to devices, again, such as my phone, such as a tablet, such as a bunch of other devices that utilize USB-C, to see if this upgrade can be used for them. It's not going to be in this video, but it will come very, very soon. Now, if we carry on looking at this device, we have a little look, there's our card there. And there it is, that is our dongle there. And again, next to it, we've got our warranty information. The device arrives with 2 years of manufacturer's warranty there. Let's move all that out of the way. And again, when I mentioned the instruction manual there, and I know I've already touched on this earlier in the video, this device arrives with the drivers on board. Now, that is incredibly important. Again, much like my incredibly childish introduction there, when you get a wireless adapter, the last thing you want to do is to need the internet to get the drivers to get the thing to work. Because if you need that, then it's a catch-22 situation there. Now, this device arrives with the drivers already inside. You connect it via USB. It appears as a USB storage drive, and in there is the drivers. Double-click, install the driver, done, and it works immediately. In earlier testing, it ported over my existing Wi-Fi contacts from my already established network adapter. I've got that killer AX M2 adapter inside my laptop. It ported over the credentials that were already in that. So I didn't need to re-register with my Wi-Fi connection already. It immediately had that. And when it switched over to the other adapter, it had all of the login information. So again, no need to re-register with your SSIDs that you use regularly. Now, if we have a look at this device, I'm getting nice and close. Again, it's going to be very tough to get the light there. It is a plastic casing, but it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like it's going to pop out at any point. They've got that angular design there at the top. There's a little LED light there in the middle for system activity, of course. These little lines here, they're not just for, just for the look of it. They're actual vents as well. If we go there, those vents, because this device obviously is fanless, and it needs to have a good amount of heat dissipation with the heat sinks there inside. It will have its own network controller inside. Indeed, if we look at the base, there's a lot more ventilation there. You can just make out that big silver heatsink there inside. The device is powered completely with USB bus power. So again, no additional power required. There's no external antennae like that, which some of you may like, and I know some of you might not. A lot of people like external antennae because you can get a bit more range, a bit more controlled area of coverage. I did notice on the base of the device, we've got that D-Link logo there at the bottom. And underneath there, from what I understand, there's a couple of screws which keep this whole piece together. And I would not be surprised if down the line, D-Link work on a version of this that has antennae based on the back. Because I think it's only a question of time how they extend the logic of this kind of device. Again, at the top, we remove the top there. We have our USB port. As you can see clearly there, this is, I hate seagulls, this is USB 3, so it's USB 3.2 Gen 1, 5 gigabit connection, which again is way more than this is ever going to need. When you think about 5 gigabits, so 500 megabytes per second, this isn't going to get anywhere near that, and we'll talk about the hardware specifications in just a moment. To give you an idea of scale, that is a standard micro SD adapter there, so that goes from a micro into a standard size. That gives you some idea about the scale of what we're talking about here. Not huge, but definitely bigger than a lot of the USB adapters on the market right now. And again, completely plug and play. Currently only Windows support, but I will look into a little bit more detail there as we go. And we will be testing this very shortly in this video. But before we go any further, let's talk about the architecture of this thing, both inside and out. What are its pros? What are its cons? So let's start off. It arrives for about £45 right now in the UK, and the price kind of jumps around at the $60 mark there in the US, a little bit more in some places like Canada and stuff like that. One thing I will say about this is a lot of you may feel slightly put off by that price tag at 45 nicker. To put that into perspective, you can pick up standard Wi-Fi 5, and by Wi-Fi 5 I mean like ACN kind of connections. You can pick those up for as little as about £12, and those are 600 megabit devices, so 60 megabyte potential spread across two frequencies that I'll talk about in a bit. And then at the top end, you can spend £20 to £25 on a much more high-end standard Wi-Fi 5 USB network adapter that's got antennae and stuff, and that will cover about 1200 megabit across two frequencies, two channels there. And again, that's 120 megabyte, but that is spread across those two channels. And again, that's 2.5 gigahertz frequency and 5 gigahertz frequency. Now this arrives at 1800 megabits or 1.8 gigabits or a potential combined 180 megabytes per second wireless throughput on this device. Now, a lot of brands will put a number next to a lot of their frequency. You generally see it's in the thousands typically, and that's effectively the total amount of network traffic it can handle across multiple frequencies. A lot more older legacy devices will take advantage of 2.4 gigahertz frequency, and again, we're not just saying old on its own, we've also got more simplistic devices that don't need huge amounts of throughput, and in those cases you get somewhere between 200 megabits to 400 megabits, so 20 megabytes to 40 megabytes on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency. But Wi-Fi 6 and most modern devices will take advantage of 5 gigahertz frequencies, which will allow around 800 megabit or 80 megabytes frequency there on the 5 gigahertz channel, which is how this device allows it to get a great deal higher than that, because on those different frequencies in this, they push on Wi-Fi 6 on the 5 gigahertz frequency 1200 megabits or 120 megabytes on the 5 gigahertz channel, with 600 megabits or 60 megabytes on the 2.4 gigahertz channel. So this device, even if you're doing a singular connection on the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi 6 connection with a Wi-Fi 6 router like this one, the result will be that you can get up to 120 megabytes per second, which again means it's 20 megabytes faster than a standard connected Ethernet cable. So again, you have the potential to exceed 20% faster than a wired plugged-in connection, which is kind of the whole point of Wi-Fi 6. The whole point of Wi-Fi 6 is to get a better level of connection, a more secure level of connection, and a more reliable data packet exchange than standard wired connection on more portable devices, as everything gets a lot more portable. Now, as mentioned, it does take advantage of USB 3.2 Gen 1, but if you connect this into a USB 2.0 port, there won't be sufficient power or bandwidth in any way to utilize this properly, so you're going to need a USB 3 port for this. Security-wise, it takes advantage of WPA and WPA 2 and 3, which is great to see on Wi-Fi 6 again. Fairly standard at Wi-Fi 6 level, but it's still great to know that you've got that. So that's 128 bit encryption while all your data is being transmitted back and forth. And the antennas, as mentioned, are integrated inside. There's no external antennae. It's quite large. Again, you've got to think that is how much is going to be protruding from your system. We will be testing this very shortly on a Windows 10 Pro system there in the background. But again, a lot of you who are worried about that price tag when you're looking at other Wi-Fi adapters at 10 or 20 quid and wondering what justifies this at 45, it is that Wi-Fi 6 connection, and of course it's incredible rarity and exclusivity on the market. Prices might come down in a couple of years as other brands maybe jump on. I'm not sure how much of this is proprietary to D-Link, but I think they've definitely nailed the market, not only getting there first, but doing a lot of publicity for this, all the way back since CES 2021. Now, what I'm going to do is get this connected into a Windows machine, and in that Windows machine we're going to do a little bit of performance there. We're going to do a bit of comparison against a Wi-Fi 5 connection. Of course, we're going to be utilising a D-Link Wi-Fi 6 router. You don't have to utilise some big beastly model like this. This has got numerous bands. I think it's a triple banded router with an enormous amount of coverage. That's not going to make any difference because we're only going to be utilising the single connection between the two. And again, with Wi-Fi 6 routers now starting to arrive at about £40 to £50, and as mentioned, a lot of ISPs, internet service providers, starting to include Wi-Fi 6 routers in their plans. It's a good time to jump, but for now, let's hop onto the test machine and do a few performance tests on this to see how we do. Okay, so we've made our way onto my desktop computer here, and I just wanted to give you a few little steps on what I'm going to be doing. When we first connected this USB adapter, as you can see there, it has appeared. That is the D-Link adapter right there. We can find out more information about its architecture. So if we right click and go on to status, you can see that we're putting out on the 5 gigahertz frequency 1.2 gigabits per second. Already 0.2 gigabits higher than that of a wired connection. I've already disabled the other internet connection on my PC, or that is to say the network connection that I've been utilizing for other videos. And again, we can find out more information about the connection. We're connected to a Wi-Fi 6 router, as you can see here, and it is via the 5 gigahertz frequency and on the AX connection there. Now, when you first connect the device for the first time, it will have a little pop-up, and it will open up like it does any USB stick. And as you can see here, what happens is the device asks you if you'd like to install the driver. You install the driver, and then boom, you're ready to go. It's that straightforward. Once you've done that, it does remove the device as a visible external drive. All it does is install that driver and then stop seeing that as anything else. Now, as you can see here, I've got a bunch of network drives that I utilize generally. We're going to be focusing mainly on this one here, the D-Link test folder. And the reason we're doing that is the area that I work within here, I utilize a 50 gigabit connection, which is sadly going to be too small to show off any kind of internet connectivity in this video. So as I mentioned in the intro, it's very important that you take everything in context that we're doing here. For example, I went into command line and then did a ping test of the QNAP server, but unfortunately, again, the NAS is connected to the router via a 1 GBE Ethernet port. So unfortunately, that's still going to cap it overall at 100 megs, even if we tried. Also, if you're going to PowerShell, we found out more information about the connection, as you can see here on screen. And once again, there is that connection there at the bottom that I've disabled, so you can ignore this one. But the one at the top, as you can see, it is utilizing that adapter, and it is working through the Wi-Fi 6 router and on the AX connection. I'm not using WPA3, I thought I'd keep it at 2 for now. That's more than enough user like me. And what we're going to be doing is doing some transfers. We're going to transfer a cluster of files and a big chunky file here onto the NAS. We're going to repeat it once again. So we're going to do it in one session, utilizing the Wi-Fi 6 connection, and then we're going to use a standard Wi-Fi connection like an A, a C, and an N. So in order to do this properly, what we're going to do is head down here, and we're going to go into the videos file. So we're going to go for a big chunky file first. This is a video here, it's 1.16 gigabytes in size. It's a file that I generally use for my live stream work. It's 1.11 gig. And what we're going to do is just nice and simple, drag and drop it directly onto the NAS. So let's go there, wait till we get the notification, open it up, go into uploads. And as you can see, we're transferring at a nice steady 60 or so megs per second. Now do bear in mind again, we are using a chunky file here. This isn't like a mid-range file. We're uploading 1 gigabyte of data, and that was lovely and quick there all the way on screen. And again, once again, although the Wi-Fi 6 adapter is capable of 120 megabytes, you've got to get the right file types in if you're using an external connection. I didn't even mention earlier on, if you try to use my internet connection now, even though I do currently have a 50 megabits per second connection, it's still only spitting out a little bit higher than that, but not really anything. That was the most I got earlier on at 90 megs there. So that's when we did our upload of that single file. So again, that was around 55 megs. So now we're going to come out of that, and this time we're going to transfer over a cluster of files, and that cluster of files are varying sizes. We're once again going to return to the videos folder here. And they're all of kind of varying degrees of size. I think the largest one here is about 2 or 300 meg. Actually, there's a 500 meg file there. So again, let's transfer that directly over into this NAS folder here, and just keep a little eye on the transmission of that upload. Let's bring that there and have a little look how it performs during this, to have a look at some of those speeds. And again, we're getting a nice steady transfer speed there. We hit a 70 there. which again, in the context of what we're doing, based on the fact that this NAS can only be interacted with a flat 100 megabytes per second at the very top end, and even that would be utilizing fairly mid-range files of between 5 to 10 to maybe 20 meg at most. This is a conglomeration of files, the bulk of which are in their hundreds. So we're still seeing a lovely transfer speed here. We're going to let it finish, and then what I'm going to do is make my way into the settings of this particular network adapter, and then we're going to change it to an AC connection, or an A, a C, and an N, and then we're going to compare how the two perform. But right now, we're going down here, and boom, they are all done. Lovely stuff, a lovely bit of performance there all the way through. So what I'm going to do now is flick into the network adapter and go ahead and swap it over. Going through the configuration settings real quick. We're going to make our way in, go into the wireless mode, and we're going to switch wireless mode to A, C, and N. So again, that's going to fix it and force it to not utilize the faster connection there. So again, we can go ahead, go into status, and you can see we've now dipped to the 5 gigahertz band of a standard Wi-Fi 5 connection there at 886 megabytes per second. So we've got that ready, and now we're going to go back into the QNAP here. What I'm going to do is delete all of that data that we've wrote to the system already. So let's delete all of that permanently. And what we're going to do is just have a little look and see how they compare with regards to uploading over Wi-Fi 6 onto this NAS. So that looks pretty empty to me. We can go back into that video folder there. And again, all of that, and we'll do the cat stream afterward. Actually, no, let's do that one first. So the cat live stream being dragged in now. Let's go. Fire it over. Open up tasks. Go into uploads. And there at the bottom, we can already see, whereas the first time we did that transfer, it was quite a comfortable 60, peaking at 70 megabytes per second. It's now effectively halved here on the ACN connection. We are going to run the test of all the others, but remember, this is just to help you guys understand a lot of what we're doing here in context as we go through each of the steps. But right now, you could already see a marked difference there in upload via the ACN connection rather than the Wi-Fi 6. So again, let's come out of that there, go back into the system. We'll leave that in there. And again, grab the same files. It's from Drive Store 4 downwards. And again, everything but the cat live stream. Let's drag it in and have a look. Let it transfer, open up the viewer, and boom. So now we can have a look at those transfer speeds. And the good thing is we still have the original speeds for the most part here on screen. And we're seeing those 30s there, but even if we look at the titanium micro file there that's completed at 37, the same file here at 70 megabytes per second, WD heatsink there, averaged out at 31, averaged out at 45, and again, just we're seeing the files just transferring that bit better via that Wi-Fi 6 connection. Now, of course, as mentioned, what we're doing here right now is all in context. We have to let's zoom out a little bit there, get a little bit more on screen. If I had a higher than gigabit internet connection, we would be able to do those Wi-Fi internet level speed tests that we talked about earlier on. So if we repeat this test here, let's duplicate that so we can keep it there on screen while it continues to do those files, all markedly slower. We can see that right there, we're still getting a decent internet speed, but that's largely because our internet speed is not going to act as any kind of barrier because we're not able to exceed that there. But this is a true indication of the performance differences between them. And again, it's very hard to run these side by side for you guys on screen. But again, this is just a very simple test, and we will be doing a lot more tests on this where we utilize a lot more of the NAS systems and hopefully take advantage of the 5G router from D-Link as well in the near future. But for now, let's make our way back into the studio. Just before we head back into the studio, I've just remembered that it's worth doing an AJA test here. As you can see, I am utilizing that mapped drive we used earlier on, and I'm still utilizing the router, Wi-Fi 6 router, I should say, and the adapter. If we bring that up there, you can see that we're still utilizing it in that limited ACN way at 886 megabits per second. So why don't we do a quick test using AJA to bench test that drive folder? We can see it there, and let's go ahead and test it. So again, we're getting that speed. Again, you've got to take into account the power of the NAS that we're utilizing there, and we are still using Wi-Fi, but that is maybe a little less than I would have expected. I'm not sure how this adapter deals with an oversaturation of cache, given that it is quite a simplistic adapter, but for now, let's leave that to do its one rotation there, which is going to be 28/18, and then what I'm going to do is now head back into the Wi-Fi adapter and very quickly re-enable it as a Wi-Fi 6 connection. Right, so we've re-enabled it here on 1.2 gigabits per second on that Wi-Fi 6 connection. It's all ready to rock. Let's quickly check PowerShell just to double check that that is still very much the case. Let's go ahead and bring that up. So we can see we've got that connection up and running. Once again, it's running on that connection there, and the other one's still disconnected, which is exactly what we want to see. So let's go back into AJA and compare against them. Once again, still using the D-Link test folder. Let's bring up the chart for there anyway. But let's go, and boom, straight away, much higher performance there. But as suspected, AJA definitely oversaturated the connection there, and we've seen a bottleneck as it's transferred that data. Again, not really the fault of the adapter. It's mainly the way AJA video tests with giant files, much like we saw earlier on when we were transferring files to the NAS. What we saw there was just a huge amount of data being thrown over the network, and then the bottleneck there at the other end. Again, not really the fault of the adapter, but it does still at least show us how we can throw those big chunks of data over to the NAS via this Wi-Fi 6 connection. And now we'll make our way over to the studio. So there you go. What do we think of this device? Let's give it its full name, DWA-X1850. Awful name, by the way, but still nonetheless, it performed well, didn't it? I mean, obviously these results have to be taken into context within the boundaries of what we did, because based on your external internet connection, that's really going to be, for a lot of users, what makes them make that jump. They're going to be so preoccupied with internet connectivity that they maybe not going to see the network benefits that this can present. What do we like? Well, I really liked the inclusive driver on board. I've sat on the floor crying too many times, knocking around with different network upgrades in the past. I like the build quality of it. I obviously like the fact that it's a USB to Wi-Fi 6 adapter. Something I was really waiting for these last few years. I cannot believe it took this long for such a device to arrive. I like that it's USB powered. I like that it is, obviously backwards compatible with Wi-Fi 5 and other connections before it. I like the fact that it's got that 128-bit encryption on board. Things that I'm less keen on, some of which I'm going to say are negatives, but really they are to be confirmed. Firstly, the lack of Mac support, at least formally or even at this stage at time of recording, seems like a bit of a bummer to me. I think a lot of Mac users would have liked to have got hold of something like this, and maybe it's just a case of getting the driver developed and making it Mac compatible or Linux compatible. It's just a question of time. Talking of Linux, obviously we want to know about NAS support. They don't highlight it, but I know that's quite a niche area. I think some users will be a bit sad that it's USB-A and not USB-C. Because whether that is because they're utilising more modern slimline devices that are a lot more portable, and therefore they don't feature A ports. But again, we will be looking, as mentioned, at taking advantage of USB-C adapters and docking stations in order to see if that's compatible. And obviously, although I don't personally agree with this, I know a number of you are going to think a negative of this, is that price point. You're going to think 40-odd nicker for a USB network adapter when you can pick them up for a tenner. But again, you've got to understand what you're getting here. You're getting a higher performance network connection. You have got the ability to be the same proximity to your router that you've always had, but this time get more out of it with the potential to exceed that of a wide connection. Of course, you've got to factor in walls. Wi-Fi 6 doesn't have the same range of coverage that Wi-Fi 5 does there, so that's something to bear in mind. It's more about a smaller but more concentrated area. But overall, I'm really happy with this device. I kind of knew I would be, and I knew the build quality wasn't going to let me down, and its performance did exactly what I expected to within context. But Overall, I can't recommend this enough. I like it. I'm going to use it personally. If you see me at trade shows in 2022, there's a very good chance you're going to see this thing sticking out the side of my laptop. And if you do, just let me know. And if you were one of those people that was affected by my intro, I'm really sorry, but you are one of us now. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, click like. It helps me understand what I'm doing right, and it makes each video better than the last. Do click subscribe or the bell to be notified as we do further content on this device and compare it against other wireless adapters in the market and in the slow run to more USB to Wi-Fi 6 adapters arriving on the market. And again, take advantage of the free advice section linked in the description to NAS Compares. It's manned by two guys, me and Eddie the web guy. We answer every single one, and we answer them completely freely. It's human beings on there. It's not robotic. There's not automated systems. We don't do anything with your email. There's a couple of donate buttons. It'd be lovely if you can use them, but you can ignore them if you like. It's there just to help home and business users alike. And do use the link to the full review with a lot more breakdown and photos and a little bit more on the tech on this device linked in the review on NAS Compares, linked at the top of the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.